Good day to you, partner. I'm Guy, and I can already tell that I'll be your best friend in this forsaken kingdom.
Hey guys, Wheat Solo here, aka the Skeleton King. So I'm just showing you that I went straight from Bale runs at level 41 with my Fire Golems with pretty bad gear, didn't even respec, and I wanted to show you how easy it was to do Nightmare with Fire Golems. It took me an hour to get through basically the entirety of Nightmare. I did have people help me on Act 3, so they did counsel and then gave me the Travway point, but everything else I did on my own. I did all of the useful quest. I guess I didn't do Countess. I even did some non-useful quests like Bloodraven. Um, I did all the useful quests though, basically, except for the Act 3 ones, because Act 3 is just obnoxious and screw that. Okay, so why are Fire Golems really, really good in general? You see that 8-yard radius around my character, the one right before Dark Pact? That is how big each one of these Fire Golems pulses every 25 frames. It's basically, I think, bigger than splash size 4, which is what clay golems have. And right, we're talking about blood golems having splash size 3. And I want to confirm how big splash sizes are, and that'll be a project I get onto very shortly. So we actually know for sure what all these splash radiuses are and how they compare to fire golems, because I think that'll help people understand just how good these creatures are. And because people aren't listening to me, and it's sad. And like, you know, I'm going through this underground passage, and it's like, it's telling the story of a man who tries to bring the light to the world around him, and instead all they do is play fucking Green Goblin still and ask about Green Goblin and what do I make for my green, what do I make first for Green Goblin? I've heard that question for like seasons now, and it's driving me nuts. Why talk about Green Goblin when you could talk about the crafts you should be doing when you get to hell? Look, there was nothing I did that was smarter in my entire life than when I should have done it before I cleared hell. But I cleared hell, and I made myself a brilliant amulet and a brilliant ring, and they weren't even good. The brilliant amulet would have been good if I was like a Warcry barbarian, and the brilliant ring didn't roll anything special, but they both gave me all res and some stats and some life. And even if all you do is get the stats and the res, even a little bit of stat, it's amazing. And also the brilliant ring is going to give you half cannot be frozen. And so if you have one other item, which I did, a pair of gloves with half freeze, I am now CBF. And like, it was so easy. I should have done it sooner. And I'm telling people, like, please craft a little bit, especially early on, just a little, because people avoid crafting, and I think when they see how good crafting is early on now, especially thanks to the diamond crafts with their all res and half freeze durations, there's just no excuse anymore. Now, you're probably not going to have a code rune for the boots, which would be sick because, you know, you don't need to like waste a slot. But come on, guys, you're not going to find sick rings and sick amulets that early. And like, I have found a +3 summon amulet in Nightmare Bales before, and guess what? You can just put it on and take it off. I promise you, you can handle one swap. Okay, now we're killing Tree Fist, and Tree Fist has a hard head, and we're going into Andariel, and it's still quite easy. In fact, all of this is going to be very easy, except for Act 4, a little spoiler. So what I'm going to be doing is hopefully what I do this season is make as many budget videos as I can. I want to try to do Poison Nova as budget as possible with weird stuff, preferably live, and then, you know, budget Fire Golems, of course, and maybe some other budget builds. And I think that's what I would find the most interesting. And I have some little items that'll be popping up every once in a while to give me some ideas to talk about. And I'll discuss them as they come up, of course. Okay, here we go. One of them right now. That was perfect because I felt like I was running out of stuff to talk about. When you're playing a necromancer or a druid or anything with a pet, it's kind of important to realize that you don't nearly necessarily need to waste money. Now, it is kind of cute. By the way, I love doing this for Amulet the Viper. It makes everything so much easier, especially with the Fire Golems and their large radius. They don't actually have to be in combat. That's kind of one of the reasons why even if the clay golems have a large splash, they actually have to engage the enemy, attack them, and then the splash occurs, while the fire golem could just be somewhere nearby and have a similar effect. And by the way, is lower resist useful? Yes. If I did this again, would I still do it? Yes. But would I only do 1 point? Probably. The only reason I'm going to do 10 CM on this build is so I can basically have a build that can do anything I want. And I'm not going to actually run 20 CM because, well, I haven't decided completely, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to stick to 10 because 10 is usually enough. But the reason why getting more points in the LR isn't necessarily worth it is it kind of slows you down, and you shouldn't be farming areas that are bad for fire anyways, because breaking immunities sucks unless you have Pierce from a skill or gear, in which case that Pierce works at full effect. That's why some builds, like a Lightning Sorceress, can farm areas with Lightning immunes, break them with Infinity, and do massive, massive damage. Okay, so now we got Duriel, and I got to talk about those items real quickly, because although Druid summons can't snapshot, you can still kind of summon them and get the benefit of them and wear a shittier piece of gear. And that would be your little, like, animal helmets, right? And then for the Necromancer, you got your little heads, you got the wands, and you have circlets as well. Those circlets are why items like Shaco and you can avoid, basically, for quite some time. And it's really, really good because Shacos are super expensive early, along with like the main set, like the train class set will be very expensive. You can just avoid all of that and just run Rhymer Splendor, like I just put on the screen. And someone said they made a Hoto for a Bone Necro playing Pluggy. That makes sense. I still think a Vex is quite valuable, although on a Bone Necromancer, are you really going to want to make an Exile, or are you going to want to make a Phoenix? And it's like, yeah, maybe not. So I could understand not wanting to have to find a white base, but he was like, I never found a good white base, so I just made a Hodo. And even then, it's single player, like, you know, just play your game, because you might never find a Bone Shade. But you can just shop for Drognin Act 2 and find a pretty damn good Bone base in normal. And the other ones, like, you can just get a +5 or a +6 by shopping a Kara and making your PvP portal right next to them. And I brought up Ryman Splendor again because I'm still seeing people not listening to me and not making Rhymer Splendor. And funny enough, I am one of those people, although I swear I haven't found a good shield to make one in yet. But you know what? I should have kept any 2-socket helm shield head. 2-socket head to make at least a Ryman. I believe that's the one with Cannot Be Frozen, because that would have felt really nice with the resistances, and it doesn't cost much. I think it's is it alum? No, I think Splendor is alum. Anyways, I brought them up on the screen. It's really, really cheap, so you're not wasting anything. And it's funny because I think I actually found a +3 teeth head at one point, and I was like, gosh, why couldn't have this been something I wanted to use? Okay, so now we're in Act 4, and this is going to be funny, because I'm finally going to die. And this is kind of why breaking immunities sucks with LR, so I get to show it to you right up close. Breaking an immunity does not make it worth to farm an enemy. I'm not even casting LR on these guys because I'm that bad, apparently. And I die a bunch, and now the sound is loud. And the reason the sound is loud is because I think the sound of the Necromancer dying is hilarious. And you don't want to know how many times I died here. And how did I fix it? I finally ran Clay Golems. And it's like the whole point of this build is you can run any Golem well, right? You can run Clay, Blood, or Fire Golems, and they each have their own purpose and objective and reason to exist. And I was just trying to hard-head it and only run Fire Golems, although I think I really honestly could have done it. It just wasn't working out. And it did make it easier. Like, just switch the Clay Golems for Act 4 Nightmare. And I gotta switch my curses up. Blah, 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 blah. But what was that on the screen? You might have saw a little image pop up, and it kind of, like, turns you on because everybody loves Green Goblin, and it's, like, their favorite build ever. And it's, like, no one ever talks about Tricurse Skellymancer from Wheat Solo, or maybe talks about the fact that there's a Rhyme and Splendor base, and I probably just should have made a Rhyme out of that shield because they're really, really good. And no one talks about that, you know, mages and archers are really good. So what is going on with Act 1, basically? Okay, Innocence was nerfed by like 50%. Instead of proccing every 8 to 12 frames, it procs every 20 frames. That's really bad. Act 1 Physical Merc magic arrow was nerfed 80%. Instead of 5 magic arrow missiles, it's 1 magic arrow missile. Her base damage was nerfed. The max damage was nerfed on Demon Machine and replaced with slightly more ED. So does that mean the build is dead? In my opinion, yes. Green Goblin is dead as we know it. But are mages and archers really, really good and have always been really, really good and provided useful damage to Green Goblin before? Yes. Can you run an Act 1 Merc? I think if you actually want to make an Innocence and put a Demon Machine on her, that build should still operate and function and do something. Now, Green Goblin was probably the fastest summon build, barring Fire Golems being fixed before, was probably the fastest summon build if you don't count, like, summoning minions. And that's a big deal, because basically the only way to go as fast as Green Goblin did was to have to get revives and council members. And it probably required just a little bit of swapping, although some people swapped on Green Goblin. I just think it would have required a little bit more swapping. And just that time, it meant that Green Goblin was faster. But I just want you to know that other summon builds were very close. And so it's not like it's your only option. And people seem to be thinking it's their only option this season. And it's like, if you really want to run Mages Archers, run an Act 4 Mercenary with them. Because Act 4 Mercenary is sick. People are saying they're going to stick with it for Fire Golems all the way through. And I have like a hard time arguing with them. And I think for some versions of the build, Act 4 might be the best. I just love Act 3 Static Shock. Okay? And you might have seen something come up on the screen a little while ago, and that was a Wisp. And why did I bring up a Wisp? It's because I'm basically smarter than Canadians. And my Canadian friend was like, Wheat Solo, I don't know what to do because I want to run Blood Golems and no good item has it. And I was like, Topwood? Yeah, it's always Topwood when I'm talking about a stupid Canadian. Wisp. Wisp has Spirit of the Barb on it. And he was like, oh, Wheat Solo, that's why you've come up with every single good idea ever for Necromancer. And I'm like, I know. It's a heavy cross I bear. All right, so do I have any other obnoxious things to talk about? I actually did. I was kind of finished talking about Mercenaries, but there's still something I can say about it. Vigor is really, really good, and I never think you should play without Vigor until you can stomp consistently. And I know there are people who can already stomp consistently or invested points into Blood Warp early without it. But like for those people playing Green Goblin and they don't have an Innocence, like, dear God, run an Act 1 Vigor Merc, because Act 1 Vigor Merc will do similar damage, I promise you. And Vigor feels so, so, so nice. Would I run like Act 4 or Act 3 and drop Vigor without being able to Blood Warp consistently? No. But can you? Yes. Act 4 Merc is clearly overtuned. Most people seem to be enjoying the Light Merc, although I think the Dark Merc is still very, very good. It's hard to argue with the Light Merc because he also provides that heal, which again, if you're stomping regularly, like budget stomping plus some damage and some healing is pretty fucking nice. So anyways, the video's about to end. I think I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. God, Lord knows, I hope so, because I just blabble and drabble on for like 15 minutes, because I can just never stop talking about Necromancer. The last thing I want to say is please play the way you want.
Come play with us.
But just don't call it optimal. Don't call it high APM optimal gameplay, but play the way you want. Skelly King out. GG.
Come play with us, Daddy.